Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to be responding to a viewer's comment. Also on the heels of this announcement, it was recently reported that LVMH and L'Oreal have purchased a minority stake in the row. Will you discuss this business deal in another video? I'm Anesu Sagonda, and I typically produce educational luxury content, either for younger people wanting to buy good quality from the get-go, people new to money wanting to learn about luxury, or people into luxury but they want to focus more on high quality under the radar brands. But from time to time, videos like this, I like to deviate a little away from the script and talk about subjects that are either trending or topical, but still within the luxury space. Beginning of your comment, you referenced LVMH and L'Oreal have purchased a minority stake in the business. LVMH is not involved in this particular transaction. I think because you were commenting on a video where I referenced LVMH, they back Al Catterton private equity fund that has bought a minority stake in Poland. So I think that's the association, but they're not involved in the row at this stage. Things may change in the future, but therefore investors, for investment vehicles, family investment vehicles that have bought a minority stake in the row. The majority shareholder of the row is still the Olsen twins. They still own 50% and above of the business. They're very much in control. They're in the driving seat. They're making all the major decisions. I would imagine the 4 new investors that have come in have a seat on the board. And it's a fairly diverse group of investors that have been strategically chosen. I remember a number of weeks ago, it may even be months, seeing an article on X that referenced that there were murmurs in the market that the Olsen twins were looking to raise capital to fund their Asian expansion. And so I thought, interesting, I wonder how they're going to do this. How much of their business are they going to give up? And lo and behold, we have now found out that a number of companies have bought a minority stake. The first two, both are family investment vehicles. They're the ones that are typically mentioned in all of the articles. I read a fairly diverse selection of articles about this transaction, but I don't have access to the information from any of the investors involved, for example. So everything that I'm saying in this video is based entirely on my own personal thoughts. So the first 2 investors that are typically mentioned, there is the owners of Chanel and the L'Oreal heiress. Owners of Chanel are the Werthemeyer brothers, and they have invested through their family office, Moose Partners. It's one of the largest family offices in the world. They have $90 billion of assets under management. Incredibly private, very discreet. It was virtually impossible to find out any information. And apparently they have about 12 investments at the moment, and they only choose 1 a year. So that's incredibly telling, that they scour the market for investments and then they make one good one based on the high growth opportunity and the potential. It says something, it's incredibly telling. So there's the Muse Partners, and then there is the L'Oreal heiress, Francois Betancourt Myers, and she has invested through her family vehicle, which is Tethers. There's Tethers and Tethers Invest. I don't know what the difference is. Reached out to the brand, and as you can imagine, I couldn't get any information whatsoever, but they have invested into the row. What I think is really worth mentioning at this point is that the Werthemeyers and the Betancourt Myers are amongst the top 5 wealthiest families in France. Number 1, the Arnauds. Number 2, Francois Betancourt Myers. Number 3 is Francois-Henri Pinault, who owns Kering. Number 4, the Werthemeyers, 4 and 5. I would have imagined the Olsen twins put word out about wanting to raise capital, so that I've had a number of suitors who would have approached them, that have had a meeting with them, and that have discussed their thoughts are, what they'd like to do, what they want to raise the capital, and seeing whether the suitor was a good fit and they'd be able to really help with whatever it is they were trying to achieve. I'm a little surprised, but obviously, as I said, I don't have access to any information. I would have thought Bernard Arnault, LVMH, Kering, Francois-Henri Pinault would have invested in the row, because it's a fantastic brand to bolster their respective portfolios. Their portfolios are very heavy on aspirational brands. Economy is jittery at the moment, and with aspirational brands, you'll find when the economy is jittery, consumers either downsize or they switch to something else. Their brands are typically not doing as well at the moment, And therefore, I'd have thought they'd want to bolster with a brand or two that's doing incredibly well, regardless of how jittery the economy is. You have brands like Hermes, Chanel, L'Oreal that are doing fantastically well. I mean, Loro Piana is owned by Louis Vuitton, Moët Hennessy, but another brand doesn't hurt, and one that's strategically chosen that really has a lot of potential. So I honestly thought Kering and LVMH would have been involved. Maybe they approached, maybe they thought it wasn't a good fit. The third is Imaginary Ventures, and that is owned by Natalie Massenet and Nick Brown. They're the co-founders. Natalie Massenet is a lady who's well known and respected, myself included, for starting Net-a-Porter, a luxury online retailer, at a time where it wasn't easy, but she went on to build an incredibly successful online retailer that went on to become a trailblazing online luxury retailer. And Imaginary Ventures is a company that's focused on investing money in business opportunities, but they also bring real live industry work experience to the table as well. And if rumors are to be believed about their Asian expansion, then definitely Natalie Massenet, having her on board is an absolute plus. The fourth investor is a company called St. Dominic's Capital, and it's funded by Laura Santo Domingo. She is behind Moda Operandi, an American luxury online retailer. So again, if they're expanding into Asia, that would be a very good fit. So it's a fairly diverse selection of investors that I feel have been strategically chosen. And I think this presents a number of opportunities apart from just their Asian expansion. Chanel and L'Oreal complement each other very well, just like St. Dominic's Capital and Imaginary Ventures. Chanel is one of the foremost when it comes to luxury brands, one of the most successful, a brand that many luxury consumers aspire to. And it's a brand you either love or hate, but regardless, the brand equity, the perception, the value placed in Chanel is incredibly high. The proof is in the high number of sales, and it's a brand that's consistently popular. They keep pushing their prices up, and even with the quality going down, they are still doing incredibly well, regardless of what is said online about the quality of their leather bags. The brand still continues to do incredibly well, and I'm sure this is something we'll see for many years to come. L'Oreal is also another firmly established luxury brand. They have a good number of mass-focused luxury brands within the beauty space. Think of cosmetics, makeup, fragrances, for example. And they also have a selection of luxury makeup brands. Think, for example, Giorgio Armani, Saint Laurent, Lancôme. Throw into that as well Helena Rubinstein, Shu Uemura, Kiehl's. Brands that are doing really well within skincare, makeup, hair products, for example. The two brands almost naturally pave the way for the road to be able to introduce other complementing products to what they're already producing. They're already producing a lot of women's wear. They do have a little bit of menswear, which has a lot of scope for further development. But they could also add beauty products across the board. Whenever I'm asked my thoughts about the row on my channel, I always get asked about Totem and also the Kate as well. Totem is a brand that's fast becoming a lifestyle brand. They've gone beyond just producing clothes. They now produce leather goods, bags, shoes. They've introduced jewelry. And I wouldn't be shocked in the near future if they also introduced homeware, for example. And so the row, I see them doing something like that. It's a natural progression. And to be able to work with brands that are established, that are in the areas that would be a good fit and they're doing incredibly well, to me is a no-brainer as to why they possibly could be together. L'Oreal, Chanel introducing complementing products that they can then add on as brand extensions. And also they're two brands that are incredibly well established, thriving, and would be as great mentors to the row. When I look at St. Dominic's Capital and Imaginary Ventures, they're a lot more focused on the luxury online retail space. As many of my viewers will know, it's a space that's really struggling at the moment. High profile closures, think of Matches, a brand I've personally had problems with. Farfetch is also struggling. You also have Yox, Net-a-Porter, owned by Richemont, which they're desperate to sell off. But you have Moda Operandi, for example, That's under St. Dominic's Capital. There's also Essence and also My Teresa. They are 3 luxury online retailers that are doing incredibly well. And why they're doing well is they're focused on a particular group. They've targeted a specific group and they've done an absolutely amazing job. Whereas Farfetch, Matches, for example, Yox, they don't target a specific group. They're just open market. Anybody who would like luxury products, you have their products for the taking. They don't tailor any of their marketing, their products. They don't curate collections or their service to a particular audience. I remember looking at a case study focused around My Teresa. They're focused on the top-end consumers. They provide them with exclusive products, experiences they wouldn't otherwise get anywhere else. And that is all provided with absolutely outstanding customer service. That is what Essence does for the Gen Zs and Moda Operandi does for one-way watches. That's who their target audience is, with carefully curated selections and the most amazing, outstanding customer service. They have continued to do incredibly well where a lot of other online retailers are really struggling. That made me think, of course, these 2 funds would be instrumental in helping them gain traction within the Asian market. It makes it an easier landing when it comes to opening stores, which is very expensive, versus selling online. It's easier to get into a lot of other markets apart from Asia, also Europe, where they are doing incredibly well. The Row only has 3 stores in the world. 3 are in the United States, West Coast, East Coast, and in the Hamptons. And they have 1 other store in London, and they're opening another store apparently in Paris. But they're popular in Europe. They have no presence in Switzerland, in Germany, in Spain, in Italy, or any other Western European markets, for example, that would really thrive and appreciate their products. And in Asia, 0 presence. So coming in through the online route, someone like Natalie Massonet, who is a seasoned professional when it comes to entering a new territory, starting a new business, and being able to really get stuck in when things get tough, establishing an online presence. And then you have Moda Operandi, who come in and fine-tune how it's done. How do you target your specific audience? How do you tailor the products from the Row? But they'd also be incredibly helpful when it just comes to seasoned professionals within the retail space, regardless of online presence, how you enter a market, how you target an audience, how it's done. And they have led by example and led companies that have gone on to become incredibly successful. The Row is a brand I have a lot of respect for. About a year ago, maybe 18 months ago, I remember watching a video I saw on YouTube. I found it through something else. And when I tried to go back and find the video again, I simply couldn't find it. But I remember thinking, oh my goodness, what has really made the difference for the Row is the fact that they have had absolutely outstanding advisors who've been able to put together and launch and then maintain a brand incredibly well. The only thing I really struggle with the Row is just the quality. Recently, their Margot bag has been compared to the Birkin as a replacement to the Birkin. There's absolutely no comparison between the two when it comes to the quality of the leathers, the craftsmanship, the details, the hardware, for example. The Margot pales into insignificance. The Birkin is a far superior product. They cannot compete like for like when you look at the individual components. But the hype that's been built around the Margot has really made a difference and made it an incredibly coveted bag. I've also looked at their clothes. When I'm asked about Totem and Kate, the Row also features. It's a brand that's also within that group of, in terms of the aesthetic and the target audience and the aspirational trajectory. Totem will then aspire to Kate, will then aspire to the Row. And when I've looked at their clothes, I remember looking at a pair of woolen trousers and thinking the quality of the fabric used was absolutely beautiful. But the craftsmanship wasn't what I would expect from a brand charging 1,300, 1,400 pounds for a pair of trousers. Machine stitched, but they'd used sophisticated machinery, but it wasn't on the level, the quality that I had expected. And I compared it to, for example, Jill Sander. Jill Sander trousers were far superior, but the Row trousers were double and in some cases triple the price of Jill Sander that had done a better job of the craft and the details of their work. And so it'll be interesting to see how things unfold for the Row the new investors, the changes we'll see. It'll be interesting to see if there's a change in quality. The products are selling as is, so maybe not. The clothes, other things I've looked at, I've thought, oh, this is interesting. I like it. I think it is worth it in some respects, but there hasn't been a lot of consistency from my point of view when I look at the Margot, when I look at some of the clothes, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future for the brand. But an interesting mix of investors who I think are going to do wonders for the role. They're just going to take it to a whole different level and cement it as a brand at the top end of the market, very confidently alongside Hermes, Loro Piana, Chanel, for example. So having Chanel on board isn't a surprise after all. But those are my mere thoughts on the row and the recent minority stake acquisition by the 4 investors.